Baby, lock the door and tear my asshole to shreds.
Hey sluts! Welcome back once again to the show where all of mine and nobody else's dreams come true. In this episode, we're going to install Amiga OS on a PS Vita and use that to try to run both Octamed and protracker. I had too much fun doing it as I went along last time, so this time there is no plan. I'm writing as I do it, and I'm going to record more of the process. I'm feeling moisturized, hydrated, estrogenated, and ready to do some dumb shit.
Mama's got a what now?
Let's get it. First, a little backstory.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I always wanted an Amiga. They just look really cool, and a lot of my favorite music has been made on them. My dad always told me about his old Commodore 64 and how shitty it was.
Get her up there, shitty.
Check it out, buddy, it's awesome.
For some reason, that made me want one.
I need it!
I'm not sure what that says about me, but whatever. I digress. Unfortunately, I don't really have the space or means to get one of these, nor an Amiga. I guess you could consider this the lore behind why I keep doing these silly projects. I really do want this to be a little pocket Amiga, and maybe finally I will be satisfied, although I doubt it. Either way, it's worth a shot. Also, one final thing before we get going, I want to show you that this is most definitely possible, and this will not just be a crapshoot for failure like the Windows video. Here, this dude got a protracker running on a RG350M. This is a retro game emulator, and as such, I imagine it will work rather well on a Vita. In the post, he notes that it is difficult to use due to the lack of a proper virtual keyboard, but me being the genius I am, I decided to use a Vita. So luckily for us, this won't be an issue. More on that later. For this, we're going to be using the Amiga emulator UAE for All, kindly uploaded by this dude on GitHub. Luckily for us, the Vita version has some exclusive features that will be very helpful in my mission for music production. I've highlighted them here, but primarily we are looking at 1. Full-speed emulation. This is very useful, as one very helpful viewer pointed out in the last video. I was using a Vita DOSBox emulator, which limited the speed the Windows ports could actually run at. Unfortunately, I do not want to return to that idea.
Don't ever message me again, you fucking little slug.
But here we can see there will be no bottleneck. 2. Virtual keyboard. I cannot understate how important this will be. The fast tracker I was running required a keyboard, which I did not have, and as trackers rely almost solely on keyboard inputs, this should actually enable me to use it. Last time was a total flop, so this time hopefully we can get somewhere meaningful. 3. Save state with hard file support and autosave functions. I think this one should be self-explanatory. Can't make music if you can't save what you are doing. 4. Adjustable stereo separation. Also somewhat self-explanatory, but this will let us create a much nicer, fuller sound. 5. Loading files from UX0 or UMA0. Very handy for loading samples and other sounds, I imagine, although time will tell if this works or not. So, with that out the way, we can proceed with actually giving this a go. I imagine this will prove more difficult than it sounds, but here we go. Firstly, we need to download this VPK and stick it in a folder on the desktop for later. After learning from previous failures, I want to have everything ready to one side, rather than doing it as I go along. Feel free to follow what I'm doing as I will go into more detail than usual with the installation. Unfortunately, I cannot legally provide you with the BIOS files as much as I would like to. I actually ended up purchasing the Amiga Forever pack, which contains all of the things you could ever need, just as a way of supporting this cool scene. I will link it below. I'm also going to link a Reddit post that should help you on your inevitable travels through the high seas. Once you have those, I would advise building a lil folder like this so you can stay tidy. I also renamed my BIOS files to match those in the GitHub page. I don't know if this was necessary, but I can't imagine it will hurt. Plus, it just feels nice to be organized. Next, I'm going to find the Octamed and protracker ROMs for when this has been successfully installed. In what perhaps
What is this?
Sunday morning, Sunday brunch, Sunday breakfast.
could be described as a massive overestimation of my abilities. In typical fashion, this required some rather extensive forum hunting. I stumbled upon this one, which has a discussion pertaining to protracker on retro handheld consoles. This guy here managed to get protracker working. He complains about the lack of a keyboard solution as his main gripe. This makes it seem like we're onto a winner, as the Vita port we are using supposedly solves this issue. Time will tell. This forum post also provides us with a link to the version of protracker this guy is using. It states that it has been designed to run on a 1200 BIOS, so hopefully this should run without too many hiccups. It also gives us a link to this site here, which I have used before to run protractor on Windows desktop. Also, because these are mod trackers, I think, legally provide the files I use here, so just check the description, and I will have put them there. It's just more of an adventure if I show the process too. This one here is interesting because it's linking to a native ARM version of protracker. While it also mentions this is meant for macOS, it does make me wonder if any of you people were unlucky enough to suffer through my last video on Windows for Vita. You may remember the debacle with Windows XP and its lack of support due to the Vita's ARM-based CPU. With that in mind, if this first option fails, as my projects often do, we could come back to this later and see if it'll run. But for now, I want to focus on the Amiga. So, next I've put the protracker file into another little folder inside my bigger folder on my desktop, keeping organized. Now we just need to find Octamed and get going on the install. Unfortunately, I cannot find anyone anywhere doing the same thing with Octamed, so I'm going out on a whim and assuming one of these will work. I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm going to randomly pick one from the list with a number that matches the BIOS versions I have in the folder on my desktop. I put this in the folder with the protracker files on my desktop too. So, without further ado, I think it's time we installed this and see what happens. First step, installing the VPK file. I'm going to load up my Vita shell and connect to my PC. Then I'm going to drag and drop the VPK to my Vita directory. Then disconnect and install the VPK on my Vita. It should pop up on your home screen. I'm quickly going to run it to see if I fucked anything up. Result: it loads. Now I guess we just have to add these BIOS files and the trackers too. So now I'm going to copy those kickstarts over and test those as well. I assume that this screen means I did it right. I mean, I can see those BIOS names in there, so I guess so. Next, the trackers. I have no clue what I'm doing from here on out, so it's going to get tricky. I'm already getting flashbacks to Windows 98. A shudder just went down my spine, to be honest. I guess I'll just copy this file over and hope for the best. Ah yes, classic. For fuck's sake, here we go again. I might actually scream. I've hunted a few more forums, and it seems the issue here is we need a .adf file instead. Luckily, mes amis, I took Year 8 French too. So, using this French forum, someone has linked an ADF for protracker. And I'm going to download this one instead, and try repeating the same process. Pray for me. Great. Amazing. Fantastic. Stupendous. Marvelous. Why does nothing I do ever fucking work? A bit more research leads me to believe I need to set up a workbench in the Amiga emulator. So I'm gonna go try and do that, and come back once I get somewhere. It looks like I'm going to have to put my internet archaeology hat back on once more. Okay, so, with a bit of trial and error, I realized I am, in fact, a moron. All I needed to do was select the other BIOS. So here we go. I'm going to show you now how I did it, and then you can have a go yourself. First, I downloaded the French guys file for protracker. Then, I stuck that in the ROM folder on my internal storage. Then, I booted it up. I mean, come on. What the fuck? That's so fucking cool! Like, no way this works. literally running protracker on a PS Vita. Once again, this little console exceeds my expectations. So I guess next we need Octamed. An Amiga with these two trackers is, in my mind, the holy trinity of old school music production. So this project wouldn't really be whole if I didn't get that working too. So off to the internet I go once more, in the search of an Octamed file. And what better place to start than my old faithful, the Internet Archive. By the way, I'm doing this instead because the one that I grabbed earlier was fucked and did not work at all. Don't know why, but the one I link for you will be the one that works. I found this dating to 1996, but it worryingly only has part 1 of 2 in its title, but I guess it is worth a shot. Well, I mean, I can't say I'm not slightly speechless. I think that might be the first time anything I tried worked right off the bat. I guess now all that's left to do is the music side of this. Quickly, I'm going to show you them both working, and how it all looks. Note the save state function here. The scaling on protracker was also messed up, so first I read this bit of the GitHub, and then changed these settings here to this. And once I did, it was running in full screen and looked much better. I found the 640 by 262 upscaled setting, with vertical position at 0 looked the best out of the bunch. Then, I copied the sound settings from a video by my favorite Amiga channel on YouTube, Offic. Well, that was fun, and I hope this doesn't disappoint anyone, but in order to circumvent my uselessness and lack of understanding, I am going to download someone else's track and play that instead. This is simply just to show you that it works, and can most definitely be used for creating music. I am working on my own demonstration, but I think it requires its own separate video. Plus, that gives me an opportunity to show some cool techno made on protracker. And also enables me to farm this for content again. Who knows? If I get good at it, maybe I could do a series of making stuff on here. I'm also working on a DJ set where I play only tunes off this site too, which I will be posting on here whenever I finish it. So that should be fun. Before I get ahead of myself though, I'm gonna order a Bluetooth keyboard for my Vita. I'm also going to link some guides on how to use protracker that have been helping me a lot in my own endeavors. Quickly, before I play this track, I will show you how I load it in. I found the tune on this website, the modarchive, which is a really cool site where people upload their tracker music for you to download. The format also includes the samples and loads into the tracker perfectly. This is a great way to learn how the pros use them. The song I've picked here is somewhat special, calling back to my origin story and my dad's old Commodore. One of his favorite tracks from his era was by a UK techno group called LFO. My dad was an old raver, and their self-titled track was everywhere in his day. I distinctly recall him talking about how whenever you turned on Sheffield's local pirate radio station, that song would be playing. Unfortunately, I can't find the MOD file for that song, but I did find this one here, which is also by LFO, and really rather good. I'll give a brief rundown of how I got it onto my Vita and then let you hear it. I gathered that I need to be adding mod files to the ADF itself. So I have downloaded this software called Total Commander, which with a free plugin enables you to decompress, add files, and then recompress into a new ADF file. This way the mod is embedded into the tracker instance. This means that you just need to go into protracker and click on the song, then press play. It's quite simple, although it took me 2 days to get here. Anyway, here is the track. And there you have it. Much more successful than that Windows train wreck last time. I'm unsure what practical uses this holds, but for now, I'm just pleased I made it work. I think the main issue to solve is creating a storage or secondary drive to have samples and mods inside of, because currently, I'm sort of stuck with around a 50 kilobyte file size. Either way, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I guess it's on to the next project now. Yay. Before I go, I just want to say thank you so much for the love on the previous 2 videos. I am astounded at the response to the Windows video in particular. I didn't expect it at all. It makes my day when I receive such lovely comments. So, thank you and peace out, bitches.